Hello everyone and welcome to a Guild Wars video. This is a kind of video response to a video I saw recently. It was by a guy called Event Horizon and it appeared to be the second video in a kind of tutorial series about the game. And I really do applaud his intention of bringing this game closer to more people, because it is one of the best games ever made, and especially the tactical complexity of it is quite daunting. So it is good to have tutorials out there for new players, but over the course of the video he basically made a monk build from scratch, and because of the nature of that type of video, it tends to happen a lot that people copy builds from videos they see, and the build he made really isn't very optimized. So I'm basing this on the assumption that it's designed for PvE. In PvP things look very different. There are very few, if any, builds that work in PvE and PvP. So let's just go through it. So first skill he got was Protective Spirit, which is a good skill, definitely, so no argument there. Second, he got Reversal of Fortune. Now this is not a bad skill by itself. It basically converts the next damage that the target takes into healing. The problem with it is that it is very difficult to control whether the next damage packet is going to be large. Ideally, we obviously want the damage to be higher than 140, or at least higher than 71, so that we don't lose any of the healing. But we can't ensure that. It might be that the next damage that the target takes is a 5 damage from a wand attack by an enemy. So in that case this would heal for a total of 10 health plus your divine healing bonus, which isn't much. So unless you're very skilled and have great battlefield awareness, which is very rare, I wouldn't recommend using this skill, because its energy cost is reasonably high considering the recharge. So if you spam this on recharge, you're going to burn your energy reasonably quickly. So not really the best choice. There simply are better skills for that, especially because it doesn't synergize very well with Protective Spirit, depending on the order you cast these in. Aegis? Actually, scratch that last bit. It doesn't. They don't influence each other at all. Now Aegis is a very nice party-wide defensive buff, and there's really nothing to be said against it. It's powerful. It protects the entire party. It's a little situational, obviously, because if you're facing a group of enemies that largely doesn't do normal attacks, so a group that has a lot of casters in it, elementalists, necromancers, mesmers, that kind of thing, then it's not a good idea to bring this skill, because it just won't prevent much damage. But in a general PvE setting where you're also facing some heavy-hitting melee enemies, this is a good skill to bring, and because it affects the whole party, it's very much fire and forget. You don't have to pay much attention on who to use it on, unlike Protective Spirit. Next thing he brought was Purge Conditions, in a synergy with the Elite skill. The problem with that is that it's generally overkill. Removing all conditions at a 20-second recharge is not a good idea generally, because let me just check if I actually have the... Doubt I do. No, I don't. But there's a ritualist spell called Mend Body and Soul, which removes one condition for each spirit in earshot. And the usual way you build a party in PvE, you will have 3 or 4 spirits in earshot, generally. Because you would, in most cases, bring a Signet of Spirits ritualist. And so that skill removes 3 or 4 conditions, and it's got a lot lower recharge, making it generally the better choice. In addition to that, conditions aren't such a huge problem in PvE. many of them that you get afflicted by only affect single targets, and they do some degeneration, which you can easily counter by different means. So unless you are facing a very, very condition intense area and you know conditions are going to be the one thing that breaks your party, focusing so heavily on condition removal is a little overkill. Especially because this combo has a recharge of 20 seconds, which in PvE is very, very long. I guess in PvP as well. So you may very well end up removing all conditions because you think now you really need to, and then 5 seconds later, bam, the next really painful conditions get slapped on someone, and you can just do nothing for 15 seconds about these conditions. So usually you won't use purge conditions. Next thing he chose was Horizon of Healing, which is frankly a very bad skill. It's pretty much the weakest protection prayer skill there is. Now it has a low recharge, but the healing is insignificant. There are simply better choices. I'll go into detail about that in a moment. Now he then also brought Heal Other to have a bit of a stronger single target heal, and Heal Other is a good skill. Though generally you would probably not use it on a monk because it's very expensive. It costs 10 energy, which I know it's technically only the second lowest cost there can be. Skills could be 5 energy or 10 energy, but as a monk you don't have much energy. I have 40, which is probably about average a monk would have. So you cannot cast this very often. And there simply are better options. Restore Life was his next choice, which is a resurrection skill, and this may seem counterintuitive, but a monk in PvE should not revive anyone. No form of resurrection should go on the monk. Simply because if you're in combat and the combat is so tough that people start dying, then if you suddenly stop healing for 4 seconds in this case to get someone back on their feet, someone else will have died in the meantime, because for those 4 seconds you can't do anything. You don't do any healing, you don't do any protecting. So generally resurrection spells go on mesmers or on ritualists, those who if they drop what they're doing and resurrect someone, your party loses some damage, but it doesn't lose its healing. It tends to happen the way that someone dies, so the monk would start resurrecting, and because there's no longer any healing from that monk, the party gets even more pressure and more people start dying, and in attempting to resurrect everyone who dies, the party gets deprived of its healing for longer and longer durations of time, making them eventually die all. So, not a good choice in my mind, and it's generally agreed upon for PvE players. Again, PvP is a completely different matter, so I'm not addressing that. And Martyr is again, a very overkill skill. It really, really makes conditions easy to handle. But firstly, you could stand there and suddenly have a ton of conditions on you, which, to be fair, usually won't be much of a problem. But if you get unlucky and there's a long duration days there, which makes your spellcasting a lot more difficult, that might be a problem. Generally, though, it's not that the skill is really bad or that getting the conditions is going to be harmful for you. It's just that there generally are a lot better choices for skills. So now I've kind of gone on for a long time about why the build he made wasn't ideal. I'll now show you 2 alternatives that are very strong. So let's start with a bar that kind of keeps in line with his idea of healing and protecting at the same time. And for this I will also switch to a different headpiece just to show you how the build will usually look. 12 healing prayers plus 2 from a headpiece, 9 protection and 9 divine favor, each plus 1 from my equipment. And this is a hybrid bar, which means it has strong healing capabilities, but also some protection abilities. And I'll just go through this. Firstly, Word of Healing. this is an insanely strong single target heal. Especially if you pay attention to the extra condition of healing for more if the target is below 50% health. This heals for over 200 health, plus your Divine Favor bonus, which would be 32 at this skill level. So that's just under 250 health, which can fill up your allies' red bars very, very quickly. It's a really strong skill. And it can self-target, which is good. In recent patches, there has also been a buff to Healing Burst, which now also heals for 150, which is less if you have the bonus condition active, but it heals for more if the bonus condition is not active. So, and this also heals all party members in earshot for twice your Divine Favor bonus. So at this point that would be 64. So this combines a strong single target heal with a decent party heal. And you can just swap these out depending on your needs for the area. And that would also be a very solid choice. Next, I would recommend using Duena's Kiss. What this does, it's a reasonably solid heal. By itself it's only 57, which is, if you notice, the exact... well, it's actually less than Horizon of Healing does. So it looks worse, but it also heals for another 33 for each enchantment and hex on the ally. And this cannot target yourself, but you yourself already have 3 enchantments that you can put on an ally, which makes the healing suddenly 154, which is a lot, which is technically more single target heal than Healing Burst does. So because enchantments tend to be very common in PvE, it's likely that your target has 2 or 3 of them on itself, and you can help that by putting more enchantments on it if you realize that target is under heavy pressure. And that makes Duena's Kiss a really, really strong healing ability. A lot stronger than Horizon of Healing. And it only has 1 second longer recharge, so it's very quickly available. And that's 2 direct healing skills, which is usually enough. You kind of have a third one with Dismiss Condition, but it's not really much of a heal. Mostly it just removes 1 condition. This is a lot more targeted than the approach the Event Horizon guy took in his build. You have to really pay attention to which condition you want to remove, which obviously you need to either have your hero windows open to see what they're suffering from, or you need to be able to communicate with your teammates about who needs a condition removed. But it only has a 3-second recharge, so if you fire it on the wrong target for whatever reason, you don't lose much. You lose 3 seconds and 5 energy. It's not that bad. Next skill is Seed of Life. This is, in PvE, is almost a must-have for any monk. It doesn't last long, it's a 5-second enchantment, but every single party member gets healed for 2 for each rank in Divine Favor whenever the target ally takes damage, which doesn't sound like much. But at this point, at 10 Divine Favor, this means 20 points of healing for every party member whenever the target of Seed of Life takes damage. And if you're playing with a frontliner, or a warrior or tank, someone who's taking most of the damage, then this can keep the rest of your party easily and comfortably alive. It's a very, very, very strong skill. And unless you somehow don't spec much Divine Favor, you should always bring this. It's just too strong to miss. Then the next skill is Shield of Absorption. This reduces incoming damage by 5 each time target ally takes damage. And this stacks up, so the first time he takes damage it won't be reduced, the next time it'll be reduced by 5, the next time by 10, and so on. And this is obviously something you slap on a target that's taking lots and lots of damage. And this can very quickly stack up. It only lasts 6 seconds. But towards the end of the duration, very often the target will just take 0 damage every single time. And that makes it a very strong defensive skill if the enemies are mostly focusing on 1 or 2 of your party members. Which should be the case if you have a good frontliner. Next, Protective Spirit, not much to be said about it, it's just a great skill. And then for another kind of healing, though not really skill, I brought Cure Hex. It's semi-optional, but there really isn't any really powerful hex removal ability in the game, at least none that's really available. Pierce and Harmony would be strong, but we don't have that. Mesmers have some elites, but we want to use Word of Healing or Healing Burst. So this is just able to remove pesky hexes, but don't fire it on just anything. Try to make sure what you remove is important. And finally, Selfless Spirit. This makes all spells that we cast on allies cost less. And this is very important because in long fights, in drawn out fights, you will run out of energy. So you need some form of energy management to maintain your energy. So this is a good all-round build. It really does work in pretty much every area in PvE. And it can handle almost any situation. Especially if you're playing with a good party, it usually will be that a few guys will be taking most of the damage, and you can handle that very well with this bar. Now, if you would rather go pure protection, there's an alternative build, which I just like to run sometimes. It is based around Aura of Faith. Now, this is a very strong single target protection ability. It makes target ally gain 93% more health when healed and take 44% less damage. Now, when running this build, because you don't use healing prayers, you would switch to a protection prayers headpiece. And this almost doubles the healing that the target gets and almost cuts in half the damage it takes. Now, it only lasts 3 seconds, but I'll get to that in a moment. Then I'll also pack Shield of Absorption, Protective Spirit, Aegis, Seed of Life. We have 13 Divine Favor, so it heals for 26, making it really strong. Dismiss Condition, mostly not only about the condition removal. As I said, heal Ment, Body and Soul is usually what you'd use for that. But it heals for 71 if the target is enchanted, and on this bar we have a ton of enchantments. So we can ensure that the target is enchanted, especially with Aegis. It's likely that our entire party is enchanted. And so this just becomes a reasonably strong single target heal. Healing for 71 by itself, plus the Divine Favor healing bonus, which should be above 40, so this will heal for over 100 health, which is good. And considering we're not speccing any healing prayers, it's pretty much one of the best options we have. Finally, again, Selfless Spirit, and to make the build really work, Blessed Aura. This makes all monk enchantments you cast last longer. And it's a maintained enchantment, so it'll cut your energy regeneration from 4 to 3. But with Selfless Spirit, this usually works. And combine this with an enchanting mod on your weapon, such as my Staff of Enchanting, and Aura of Faith will last 5 seconds. And those 2 extra seconds of duration really can make a huge difference. If you see one member of your party taking a lot of damage, you can put on Aura of Faith and then Seed of Life, and then you can usually lean back for 5 seconds and nothing will happen. And in PvE especially, fights don't last very long, so by the time you've done that combo once, it may well be that half of your enemies are dead, and you don't really need to do much else. So, yeah, those are 2 alternatives which will function a lot better, because obviously both of them use PvE-only skills. They will not work in PvP. But yeah, this was not meant to be bashing his build at all. It's meant to suggest improvement. And if newcomers watch his video and maybe just copy his build, they would be running a suboptimal bar. So yeah, that's it, I guess, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.